Hi everyone. What a beautiful day it is today. I thought today what I would go through is a few stretches for the mid and upper back, which will hopefully help to take pressure off the neck, of like structures up and downstream from there. So the areas around the neck and also the hips. Because if this part of your spine, the thoracic, where your ribs are attached, becomes really fixed and static, then what we might not realize is that every time we think we're extending the back, what we're actually doing is just moving the whole thoracic spine as a lump, as a unit. So yes, I'm managing to work the subject of ribs into the theme yet again, because they are quite important. Oh, Samantha, you missed a day, but that's all right. I forgive you. You're like my most regular person. Um, anyway, right. So, and also I forgot to upload yesterday's to YouTube, so I will. I'll do that. I'll put today's and yesterday's on together. Um, oh, the other thing before I start, I thought I'd show you is because it's such a nice day. Well, I've been working outside every day anyway, but when it's really sunny, it's quite hard to see your screen because obviously the reflections. So I've made a little house for it. So I just kind of put some cardboard around it to make it less reflective so that it's easier to see. Because I don't think I could bear to be doing admin inside on a day like this. And sometimes you've just got to get shit done, don't you? Right. So anyway, going back to the subject, do you have some kind of roller? Obviously, I've got a half dome here. I'm going to do a little bit with a normal roller. If you don't have those things, sort of trying to think of what you could use as an alternative. Also, if you are osteoporotic or if you have been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia, or if you haven't been diagnosed but you're also of a very slender frame and you have an exaggerated thoracic curve, you're probably at risk. So I'd want you to take care, hi Veronica, with the hardness of the surface that you're going to do this against. So you could also use something like a bolster or a rolled up towel or something really quite soft. I'm going to use something harder, but I want you to bear that in mind and tailor the exercise to your body's current abilities. So what I'm talking about is actual thoracic extension, which doesn't involve the ribs at the front lifting up. So what I'm going to do is just kind of lie down with my tool, whatever it is you're using. So if you've got kids and you know the noodles that they use for swimming, like they work really well. Yeah, like I said, tightly rolled up towel. Depending on how hard you want it to go, it really doesn't matter what you use. You can just kind of find something to kind of put behind you. I'm going to start quite high up, and what I'm going to do is work my way down my rib cage. So I've got my head supported with my hands, and this is a skill in itself, sort of allowing your arms and your hands to support the weight of your head so you're not straining at all in the neck. So we're trying to release the front of the body whilst extending a little bit in the back. So as I lean over the apex of my dome, I want to show you what not to do, which is, can you see there my ribs are kind of hiking up, but you can start to let your weight sink back without the front of your ribs moving. And then I'm going to sort of shuffle up a little bit. Basically, the further that way I go, the more of me is on the other side of the apex of the dome, which means that there is a greater load on the other side of the dome that my abdominals have to work on. So yesterday I was talking about bolstering your head or your shoulders and reaching your arms or some kind of weight over. Today we're using your body as that load. So we've got the dome here, which is like the fulcrum, and you can just kind of hang out here for a bit. And I was half joking yesterday about Netflix binging, but you could do this for a bit, you know, just kind of adding a little bit of a mini workout while you're watching something on Netflix. Anyway, so I'm going to move the dome a little bit lower down, or move me a bit further up, whichever way you want to look at it. And you can spend as little or as much time on each increment as you wanted. And what I'm going to do, this is basically the gist of the class today, so you maybe don't need to watch it all if you know you're not interested in my ramblings. I'm going to talk about why I'm doing, continue to talk about why I'm doing what I'm doing. But really it's about consistency and it's about spending time. Often I will whiz through this in a class just to give like my clients the gist of what I'm doing. So here I'm going to start to let my weight lean back a little bit. But if I was to go too far, again, my ribs would start to lift up. So you want to be careful that as you're going back, you're keeping the front of your ribs flush. And then I'm going to move the dome a little bit lower again. So the lower I go, the more my abdominals have to engage because there is more load on the other side of the fulcrum, whatever it is you're using. If you are using something soft like a rolled up towel, you know, if you don't have a roller at home, you could always, Amazon's still going, you could always order one and come back to this another time. So as I'm leaning, as I'm sort of resting into this position, I'm playing with how far I can sink back. Again, if your neck starts to strain, just notice whether your arms have relaxed and you're holding yourself up here. Use your arm strength to hold the weight of your head. I'm going to go a little bit lower still, and that's probably about the limit of my rib cage. You don't want to go too low. You don't want to go in the small of your back. You want to make sure you stay on the ribs. So here you can see now I'm actually starting to work quite hard because I'm quite low on the rib cage, and probably the most mobile vertebra in your spine is at that TL junction, so the thoracolumbar junction, where your ribs end and your lumbar spine starts. So there you're going to have to work really hard not to let this go. You've got to kind of work on keeping that stable as you allow yourself to relax over whatever it is you're using. And I'm going to work my way back up now, but I'm going to sort of come and have a little roll on the side as I'm going back up now. So you could sort of turn, again, making sure that your ribs stay stacked here. So as I'm sort of turning to the side, I'm allowing my weight to sink over the half dome. And I'm going to have a little roll on the other side. So I'm just going to sort of turn. So I'm getting into basically this area here, this territory here, which is the side of the rib cage. And as you work your way up doing this, what you're going to find is that it gets a little bit more tender when you get to the area towards your armpits here, like this bit here. That can be a bit sore. But again, all of this is sort of it's pressure deforming. By lying on something hard, your body is having to respond to the surface that's underneath it, which is then going to A, work it, and B, release the sort of tissues between your rib cage, all the tight tissues under here, so we can free the arms up and let the arms be free of the torso. Again, that's going to help you to have a more stable core. So I'm going to work my way up a little bit again, come to the other side. Okay, so again, you might not have a roller at home. I know not everybody has rollers at home, but if you do, you can do a similar sort of thing. But now I'm going to press my feet into the ground, keep my knees bent, and just hover my hips off the ground a little bit. And I'm just going to roll that upper back area, supporting the weight of my head. And this is tougher. This is like more load because I'm holding the weight of my body and trying to relax over the roller. Coming into the tight areas around the sides of the ribs. So I talked about, on one of these lives, I talked about using a belt or a band around your rib cage while you breathe. And you could still So if if you're pushing into something hard, or if there's something hard you're having to resist against, you could still think about sending your breath into that area to free it up, to loosen it up. You could spend as little or as long, little or as much time as you wanted doing that sort of thing. All right, so we're 10 minutes and I'm going to do a little bit more just general mobilizing. So this you don't need any equipment for. You can literally just you just need a bit of space, whether it's in your garden or on your living room floor. But you're just going to let your knees drop. We're coming into some shin boxes, so we're going to start just by doing a few knee drops. If you need to have your hands on the ground, not a problem. You can leave your hands on the ground and focus on what your hips are doing. So for me, I think I've always preferred the idea of letting your breath be independent of your movement. If it helps you to use your breath, with the movement, then, some people really like that. I prefer the idea of just natural breathing. The diaphragm can do what it wants. As in it's functioning automatically because we're breathing, and you're just letting your breath flow independently of the movement. And you can let your weight lean and sink in different positions. So I'm going to stay over on this side for a bit now. I'm going to lean. If I lean forwards more towards my feet, I get more stretch in the glutes. If I come over towards the knee, it's just a slightly different stretch. And then if you come further back, you can press your fingertips into the ground and twist around a little bit. Take a couple of breaths into the ribs in this position. Make sure your head is relaxed so you're not jutting the chin out. I'm going to do it on the inside, so I'm going to roll my legs over and just come into a lean. You can either come forwards towards your foot. That, for me, gives me a stronger stretch in the glutes. You can come around towards the knee, bring your weight back, press your fingertips into the ground and twist. Let your head relax, let your breath fill your ribs, let your belly relax. And yeah, I'm going to come into a little stretch here where I cross one leg over the other. Try and get your knees towards being stacked. It doesn't matter how stacked they are. You can come into a little lean forwards, shift over to the side. So you're just applying a little bit of mobility to different joints. Switch legs. I'm going to come over into kneeling, come down onto my elbows. Play around with your rib position here, so if you let your ribs completely collapse and then push them up a little bit, keep your pelvis neutral, keep your toes tucked, let your hips rock back towards your heels and then come forwards again. And just notice what your elbows are doing. So do your elbows try to creep wider as you rock back? Can you keep them in line with your shoulders? If you turn your palms up to the ceiling, aim to get your thumbs towards the ground. So you're twisting them that way. Don't worry if they won't actually touch. And I'm going to step one foot by my hand, flatten my back, push my tailbone up, shoulders back, and just have a little shift around here. And from this position, I'm just going to start to straighten my leg out. It doesn't matter if it won't straighten all the way, you're just kind of mobilizing so you can come further forwards and shift further back. Drop the knee out to the side if you want. Now for me, I get a stretch on the outside of my foot and ankle there when I do that. Now if you come into this shift back and pull your toes back towards you, that will give you more stretch in the back of the leg. And then let's have a go on the other side. So I'm going to step 1 foot forwards, tailbone up, shoulders back. Shift your hips back, straighten the leg. You doesn't have to straighten all the way, but if you straighten it a bit, you'll feel that stretch in the back of your leg. You can pull your toes back if you want. Lean forwards, move around within that stretch, within that movement. Let your knee drop out to the side so that you can stretch the outside of the ankle. Take your knees wide, let your feet drop out to the side. Come down onto your elbows, do a little rock back there, making sure your pelvis stays neutral so you're not tucking the tailbone under. Some people find this stretch really gruesome on the knees, so you don't have to go, wide if you don't want to. Putting extra cushions underneath your knees helps as well with that. I'm going to do a thread the needle from this position. You can bring your knees back into centre if that's more comfortable for you. Take one hand behind the other, slide it through, bring your shoulder down, and switch sides. I'm going to go 3 each way. Okay, and then you can bring your knees back to neutral, back to centre. And I'm going to slide one hand forwards at a time and just let my armpit draw down towards the ground. Again, watch that you're not letting your ribs collapse. Yeah, I'm just going to go 3 each way. Yeah, Mark, it's one of my favourites too. I'm just going to go 1 more each side. And if you feel comfortable sitting on your heels like this, so you're sort of sitting in a kneeling position, we can come into a little bit of a stretch for the waist as well. So I'm going to let my hips drop down to the side. Some of you might need a bit of support underneath you for this. So I'm going to kind of come down to one side like that. So I'm just kind of letting my bum slide to the side of my feet. And then you can kind of reach over, do a little bit of a side stretch. You just have to watch it. Just watching makes you feel better, does it, Mark? And then you can let your bum drop to the other side, reach that arm up, whatever works. Hey, the power of the mind. And over. So you want to kind of work on whether you can do that without holding on. Oh, my left knee doesn't like that, so I'm going to have to bring my hand down. I'll show you from the side. So you're kind of coming down to the side, back up, and down to the other side. So if you have a sort of a block or a cushion on either side of your hips, that can make that more accessible. And I'm going to do a little bit of toe stretching now. So toes are tucked, hips rock back towards your heels, and just see if you can let your weight come back up here and let your weight shift side to side. So you can kind of come forwards, let your feet flatten and rock back, and then tuck the toes again, let your hips rock back towards your heels and let yourself shift around, stretching out the big toes and the plantar fascia, which is the big tendon on the sole of the foot. Alright folks, I think that's probably enough for today. Thanks for joining. Oh bless you, you're so kind, Mark. Yeah, I hope you find some of this information useful. I know I keep banging these out every day. If you have any questions, as always, questions are welcome, and yeah, see you all tomorrow.